Hey everyone, my name is Eric McDonald and I am an associate teaching professor at the University of Washington Tacoma campus. And I wanted to tell you about a really cool project that I started a few years back where we engage local middle school students in a project looking at pre-spawn mortality in Swan Creek. Now, before I tell you about that specific project, I wanted to just give you a little bit of background, especially if you're not familiar with pre-spawn mortality. So back in the 1990s, folks were out doing salmon surveys as they commonly do in the fall. And of course, when you're doing your salmon surveys, you're walking upstream, you're looking for both live fish and carcasses. And it's not uncommon to see something like this where there's a bunch of dead salmon floating downstream or resting on gravel bar, anything like that. That's all normal. We know that salmon die at the end of their life cycle, so not necessarily an alarming thing. But what they started noticing was that they were finding lots of female salmon that were full of eggs, and the obvious conclusion then is that those female salmon didn't get a chance to spawn before they died. And so we call that pre-spawn mortality. So they die before they get a chance to spawn, pre-spawn. How do we identify pre-spawn mortality out in the field? Well, there's two ways. The main way is through what's called necropsy, and that's where you cut the fish open to confirm that it did or did not spawn. And we specifically only look at female salmon, so female coho salmon. It's a lot harder to tell if a male salmon has spawned, and so we just stick with the females. So here's a video of a necropsy. The first thing that I want to point out is that when we found this coho salmon, she appeared very bright in color, so very silvery. Her tail fin is completely intact. It's not damaged at all, as is the case when a salmon spawns. She beats that fin up quite a bit as part of the process. Obviously, we knew that this fish did not spend much time in fresh water and very likely did not spawn. Normally, if she had spawned, first off, her color will be different. They usually get sort of a reddish hue, our cohos do. And again, the fins get really beat up, and there's fungal infections on the fish. They look pretty nasty. So we suspected that this was going to be an incidence of pre-spawn mortality. So we've got these handy little tools here that help to open the body cavity pretty quickly. You can see her belly's pretty wide, so again, more suspicion that she was going to be full of eggs. So as we cut her open, we'll peer into the abdominal cavity, and what do we find? Well, not good news. So she is absolutely full of eggs. She clearly did not spawn. This is a clear incidence of pre-spawn mortality. So that's often what it looks like. The fish is really bright. What I mean by that is it's really chromy in appearance. It doesn't really have the spawning characteristics really well developed, particularly the coloration. So we can also identify pre-spawn mortality by behavior. Now this is really hard to find, but here is a symptomatic fish. Notice that it appears to be disoriented. It's not responding at all to human presence. They oftentimes will swim with their head out of the water, and they'll kind of open and close their mouth. They call that gaping. So this fish is not healthy. But again, if you look at it, it's pretty. This fish is pretty chromy in appearance. It's got a little more red than the picture in the previous slide showed, but very, very obvious indicator that something's wrong. Now, studies have been done, and we know that there's only about a 4-hour window maximum where these fish will show those particular symptoms. So you have to find them within that 4-hour window to identify pre-spawn mortality. Really, really hard to find. But they have found several of these fish up in King County, which is where this video was taken. I don't know which stream in particular, but somewhere up in King County. So what causes it? Well, stormwater is the culprit. And stormwater is that stuff that flushes off of roofs, sidewalks, streets, and goes into these storm drains. All of that, the water and all the chemicals in it, collectively are referred to as stormwater. And Unfortunately, a lot of that water gets directly conveyed to nearby salmon-bearing streams. So we can see here stormwater flowing out of a pipe, going into this river, and here are a bunch of sockeye salmon swimming right through that slurry. So obviously not a good thing for our fish. So there's been a lot of work done in King County to look at pre-spawn mortality, and we kind of wanted to do something more local. Let's take a look in the Puyallup River watershed. To my knowledge, nothing has been done, no concerted effort to document pre-spawn mortality has been done in this watershed. So we decided Swan Creek would be a good candidate in terms of where to look for pre-spawn mortality. So then we reached out to local middle schools to see if anyone wanted to work with us. So myself, undergraduates from the UW-Tacoma, and look for incidences of pre-spawn mortality. Surprise Lake Middle School was probably the most eager and the first to jump on this, and they've been helping us out for the past few years. And so what we do is we have an in-class exercise first. So this is Kavi Reyna. She was the undergraduate UWT environmental science major that worked with me last year. And so she's telling the middle school students about pre-spawn mortality. And then after that, we do a salmon dissection, which the students absolutely love. That's probably, well, that is their favorite part of the in-class activity. So we show them how to do a necropsy, and then we kind of just open it up as a free-for-all if you want to touch the fish, or they like poking the eggs and the eyeballs. They really love poking the eyeballs. So I kind of just bring a bunch of probes and let them go at it. So you can see they're very eagerly engaged with this particular salmon. And then we bring them out to the stream and we actually go do a salmon survey and collect data. It's a great time. The students love it. Some of them have told me that they've never been out to a salmon-bearing stream before, and we have a lot of them in close proximity to us. So you can go online and do a Google search of where to find spawning salmon. But Clark's Creek is a great place to go. They've got really good salmon viewing in that particular area, right by the hatchery. Swan Creek is also great, especially for chums. So anyhow, what did we find? Well, this is data from 2017. So this was the first year that we collected data. In the blue is showing daily rain values. So early on, not much rain. The green dotted line is showing the number of female cohos that we identify, and this is female coho carcasses specifically. And the red X's are pre-spawn mortality events. So we found a female carcass, we opened her up, as you saw in the video, and we confirmed that she was full of eggs. So, for example, we found one on October 24th, and we found two on the next sampling event. And so what you see here is the fish really haven't shown up to, sort of mid-October. And then we get this big rain event, and that's oftentimes the case where salmon will wait for a big rain event before they jump into smaller streams. It's easier to swim when there's a lot more water in the stream, and it's safer. You're not as vulnerable to terrestrial predators if there's more water in that stream. So they pushed up after this really big rain event in late October, and immediately after that we found two pre-spawn mortality events. So we found one fish again on the 24th, and we found two females on the 31st. And in both cases, all the females we found were exhibiting symptoms of pre-spawn mortality. And then as you progress, we find more females, no pre-spawn mortality. Then we get another decent rain event, and then we find a pre-spawn mortality right after that. And then you can kind of see that the peak of the run is over, and we found a few on the 5th of December, but then that was it. So kind of makes sense. You get a big rain, that flushes all those toxins off the street and into the local stream, and those fish are there to be exposed to that, or they are indicators of that poor water quality. And then not much not much in terms of big rain events, and we get a more significant rain, and then wash more of those toxins into the water, and you get that pre-spawn mortality event right afterwards. So I would say this is pretty textbook. 2017 was the big year in terms of escapement, or the number of fish that were spawning in that particular creek. 2018 and 2019, we didn't really have many fish showing up, and we had very low sample sizes on the number of female carcasses. So N is the number of female carcasses that we sampled each year. So 2017, we sampled 15 female carcasses, and we found 27% pre-spawn mortality rate. We found 0% pre-spawn mortality in 2018 and 2019, but we only had 2 females each year to base that number off of, so really low sample sizes. And this was last year, so after we had finished up with our the data collection and analysis, the students were actually asked to present what they did to the school board. It was really exciting. Each student came up and talked a little bit about what their specific project was and how it related to salmon, and the school board was really impressed. A lot of them said that they had learned a lot about salmon in that hour time period. So it was really fun to watch. You might be wondering, okay, this is not good news. What can I do? Well, if you follow the rule of only rain goes down the drain, that's going to take you a long ways. Think about if your action is going to affect what flushes into that storm drain. If your actions affect that, then you might think about changing those actions. For example, if you are out, say, walking a dog, and your dog defecates on the street or on the sidewalk, that's obviously going to wash into a drain if it's just left there, right? So that would be a case where you pick up the pet waste, you dispose of it properly, i.e. throw it away, put it in a garbage can. Don't wash cars on the streets because what you're doing is you're washing the sediment off of the vehicles, and that's going to go right down into the drain. Sediment is another problematic pollutant that we have to deal with, not to mention other metals and various pollutants that you're washing off your car, in addition to those sediments. Be more conscious about how you use pesticides and fertilizers. So ideally, you completely eliminate use of those, but I understand people like green lawns, and they like lawns without weeds. So you can go and spot treat weeds, you can pick weeds, try to use organic fertilizers that are more slow release. Plus they also are they're good soil amenders, so they'll help retain moisture in your gardens, which your plants really love, especially in the summertime when we don't get much rain. You can also work with your community. So here's just a cool example. There's a group, it's called Orcas Love Rain Gardens, and you can find them at orcasloveraingardens.org, and they actually are looking for volunteers to go help maintain or plant plants in rain gardens. So they show you what rain gardens are. They are very good at cleaning stormwater, which is the connection to this particular talk, and they have resources for teachers. So if you're a teacher and you'd like to incorporate something into your class related to this topic, visit that website. They have resources. They can come out and help you maintain your rain garden if your school happens to have one. But in any case, you can find great events like this that are community focused, and it's just a great time, and you're helping out, making a difference, improving stormwater quality, so that we can reduce our impact on the fish that call these waters home. So I just wanted to end with an acknowledgement slide, just thanking all the folks that made this project possible. So I received funding from UW-Tacoma, as well as the Puyallup Water Initiative Environmental Education Community of Interest, and lots of guidance and collaboration with the Puyallup Tribe of Indian Fisheries Department. So thank you to all those great groups. I hope you all learned something and have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the Salmon Homecoming Celebration.